So yeah, thank you so much everybody for joining. We're gonna really spend some time today talking through some functionality that for those of you that are using Salesforce doesn't natively live in the platform. So really today's session comes from years of experience on our end, living in the Salesforce platform, working with clients in the Salesforce platform, and noticing some common challenges that our clients are facing, and working together with Seamus and the Formstack team, really want to talk through some solutions that have really worked well within the platform and the ecosystem. So really today, that's where we're going to spend our time, is talking through kind of what we're seeing, what the landscape looks like, and the solutions that we have in place that we've seen our clients see lots of success with. So today's two esteemed colleagues, myself, Gil Lantini. We have Seamus from the Formstack team. Just for some background, I'll let Seamus introduce himself when I'm done speaking here in a minute. But really, just for some background, I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem about 5 or 6 years now. Our team works with clients on helping to set up the Salesforce platform, and we've worked in over 1,500 Salesforce orgs at this point over the last 5 years. So we really have firsthand experience on what we're seeing with where clients are seeing success, where clients are seeing challenges. The platform is great, obviously very flexible and a great solution, but there are some commonalities we see with clients using the platform, and that's really what brought us to today's session, is really how do you enhance the platform and make it even better and a more powerful solution. And again, as a Salesforce partner, that's something that we do daily for clients. And again, Formstack's been a great partner of ours. For additional context, we started as a digital marketing agency, and as we're building that company, really found this need in the Salesforce ecosystem. So about 6 years ago or so, IMG was born, and about a year and a half into that, we became a Salesforce partner, and now that's really a big part of who we are. So again, today's session really came about as something we're seeing in the ecosystem, and really wanted to bring that to you guys. So again, appreciate you joining here. One thing I want to point out, I want to keep this engaging. So as you have questions and think of things, use the chat, and I'll monitor the chat as Seamus is speaking, but we'll want to answer any questions or address questions as they come up. If we don't address all the questions during, we'll follow up with answers, and then we'll also share this recording after. So don't think you're going to miss anything. We'll make sure that this gets shared out with everybody that was here today. And again, any questions that you may have, please put them in the chat, and we'll be monitoring those throughout. And then I'll go over a little bit of the agenda too, Seamus, then I'll let you intro and take it from there. So really the three common things that we see and what today's session is really about, there's 3 areas that we commonly see clients have issues with some of the Salesforce native functionality. So one of those issues is with form capture, whether it's a lead form or a case. So essentially, Salesforce does have some functionality in order allowing you to grab data and pass it into the system, but there are limitations. It's not something that you can build using a WYSIWYG editor. There's not conditional logic. It's really just more of copy and paste HTML, and that's about as robust as it gets. And those forms also don't pre-fill with client information to capture more from your client. So one thing that we look to address is how to create more powerful forms that can leverage Salesforce, but give us a more powerful front end and a more flexible way to capture data, whether it's, again, prospects, leads, or cases. The other functionality that we tend to see clients asking for that tends not to really be native or flexible out of the box with Salesforce is that document generation. So when we think of writing a full proposal, some type of contract, Salesforce has some quoting, and they have some add-on tools for more sophisticated quoting. But there's really not a document management solution. So things with think of an old-fashioned mail merge in Word, right, where we're taking information from a spreadsheet and putting it into a Word document. What we're talking about here is taking information from our CRM and populating documents we've created, and then sending those out to clients or prospects. And then the third, which is related, is the e-signature. So now we've sent out contracts or documents, but we don't have a native way to capture a signature in Salesforce. So again, what we'll be talking about today is really how do we address these 3 challenges, and how do we address them with one solution rather than needing, potentially 3 separate solutions. And that's where Formstack comes in. For some context there, we've been a Formstack partner for a good 3+ years now. And there are other solutions in the marketplace. So by no means is there only one solution. But this is one that we find, especially in the small business space, has been affordable and flexible for our clients. And it definitely is our go-to because it tends to solve multiple problems. So without further ado, I'm done talking for now, but want to introduce Seamus and let him take it from here.
Thanks, Gil. I think you did a pretty good job of summing up exactly what I'm going to show here today, so we can pretty much close it out from here. But really, I'm Seamus Higginbottom, one of our account executives, directly partnered with the team over at IMG. So we've launched a number of successful projects together. I've been here for about just shy of 3 years, but ultimately today, going to be digging in a bit further around Formstack, what it is that we do, how we fit into the Salesforce ecosystem, and yeah, hopefully you all gain a little bit of value and a little bit of knowledge surrounding the platform here today. So as far as Formstack, kind of the gist of why we exist is here to help fill the gaps that Salesforce has as a native platform. At the end of the day, like your clients, your patients, your constituents, depending on your vertical, have a digital first expectation. The ability to fill out a form for an application process, receive some sort of agreement for e-signature, but ultimately, again, back to Gil's point, Salesforce just doesn't cover all of this natively. With that being said, there's a zillion tools that work alongside of Salesforce, Formstack being one of them. But the nice part is that we marry functionality for 3 very specific processes that we'll get into in a moment. So a little bit more about what we're seeing in the market today, just from a digital transformation space. Not only do we help provide that digital first expectation or a toolkit in order to provide that digital first expectation to your client base, but that oftentimes the tools that work alongside Salesforce or just in general to help aid in digital transformation often fall flat because you're not giving the power back to the business user. There's some other stats on here really surrounding time spent on repetitive tasks and just inefficiencies overall. And we'll cover some more of that here today. But ultimately, the entire Formstack platform is really centered around the idea of passing really technical processes onto a business user, not having to rely on a developer, a Salesforce developer, an admin to really be able to build out anything and everything surrounding those data collection, document generation, or e-signature processes that are inherently not native to Salesforce. So a little bit further on that piece, the platform from Formstack, specific to Salesforce. So really 3 key tools that we're going to take a look at here today. The Forms for Salesforce product, documents, and our e-signature tool, Formstack Sign. Really the only tool set on the market that solves for those 3 main processes around data collection, document generation, and e-signature. And it's more than just a toolbox. There's some specific features and functionality that really differentiate the Formstack platform. First and foremost is that it is inherently native to Salesforce, meaning that when you're building your forms within our app, which is an app on the App Exchange, we're already just using that particular Salesforce org's data model. So as I'm adding, say, for example, a contact first name field onto my form, it's automatically connecting it directly to that object, which allows for some pretty neat functions around dynamic prefill. So creating a specific form link to a specific record. Think about more continual data collection, things like NPS surveys or any instance in which you already know who this person is because their record is in Salesforce. They shouldn't have to fill out their name or email on 16 different forms in an application process because you already have that information. One of the other unique functions of the app is that we do have a direct connection right into Experience Cloud. We have a Lightning Web component so you build your form and just simply drag and drop that component right into your experience page. So Ultimately, why are you choosing a native product within Salesforce? I've already covered some of that, but key points are that we're already mirroring your existing object structure in Salesforce. Again, making Salesforce your single source of truth. And then added security of making sure all data is only flowing into Salesforce. See, we have a hand raised in the chat there from Anna. And are you able to type a note into the chat?
And I can keep it. I'll keep an eye on the chat, Seamus, as we're going through. So yeah, feel free to put questions in the chat, and then we'll address them as we go between slides.
To take the aspect of native a step further as well, we do offer a specific tool set called Native Cloud Pro. So in terms of data collection, if your organization requires some specific compliance standards, especially in verticals like healthcare, like government, like financial services, oftentimes there's some added, concerns around where data is going. The Native Cloud tool, we piggyback off all of the compliance standards of Salesforce because data will never actually leave your force.com servers. As far as documents for Salesforce goes, today's demo, we're really going to be looking at the platform holistically, but breaking this down one by one. So we've talked a little bit about the form solutions of getting data into Salesforce, or perhaps getting data out of Salesforce into a pre-populated form. The second piece of the puzzle becomes, how do we take data from Salesforce and generate really nice external marketing type documentation or formatted documents, be it flyers, event tickets, or even more commonly, things like agreements, proposals. How do we get that data out of Salesforce into a very dynamic document generation engine? And the answer in today's conversation is going to be the Documents for Salesforce solution. The nice part about this is we do take a bit of a different approach than some of the other solutions on the market. A couple different ways that we can generate a document from Salesforce. Number one could be a document being triggered from a form being completed. So think about an initial application, maybe sending out an NDA or something earlier in a client process. Number two could be using flows, so building a custom button or some other trigger in Salesforce to generate a document from any Salesforce object. Thinking about batch merges or batch generation of documents from a list view. And then, of course, I've already mentioned it here, in automation using flow. So tons of flexibility as far as how and when we can generate documents from, again, any object in Salesforce. And last but certainly not least, e-signature. I'm sure we've all signed off on a document electronically. And again, going back to the first slide that I talked about, I think the key here is that everybody has that digital first expectation, or at least the majority of your clients do. And if they don't already, they're going to very soon. So being able to present a client with an agreement, a waiver, any sort of documentation for e-signature, in this case, either via email, but also via text message. We'll send out the deck as well. We've got some customer stories in here to share with you all. So definitely keep an eye out for that following today's demo and webinar. But without further ado, I'm going to unshare my screen here for a moment. We're going to jump in the product itself. While I'm doing that, if there's any burning questions that are coming up, please feel free to add those into the chat. So where we're going to go from here is I'm going to show you around a registration form here. This particular registration form is on a faux website that we built out here for Children's Health System. You may or may not be in the healthcare space here today. Point is, a registration process or an application process is largely the same from one vertical to another. At the end of the day, we're collecting information on who this person is, what their interests are, or ultimately how it is that we're going to help this particular person. In this case, what's going to happen after I submit said form is that it's going to generate a document for e-signature sent to this particular person. It's also in tandem going to generate a new record in Salesforce, or in the instance that I have a match on that record, it will update that record. And lastly, when that document is generated, it'll be sent for signature and then ultimately saved back into Salesforce. So as far as this form goes, this is built with the Forms for Salesforce tool. Again, drag and drop, no code, WYSIWYG editor. You're simply assigning what objects we're building this form upon, down to the grandchild relationship level. And as we build the form with our Salesforce fields, very easily deploy this, whether it's embedded on a website like so, or distributed via email in the form of a host link, completely up to you. Ultimately, you'll see a variety of different field types in here, ranging from long answers as to why Gil is going into Children's Health System for breaking both of his thumbs. Ultimately, in today's age, breaking both your thumbs would probably be a pretty big problem. But as far as the field types go, again, we will mirror any field level validation in Salesforce as they're added onto the fields themselves. But again, variety of different field types, drop downs, long answer, short answer, pick lists, checkboxes that drive logic in the form, file upload fields, perhaps, collecting a driver's license or bank statements or anything along those lines. Ultimately, great question, Q&A there. Love that. From here, I've also got some other logic here driving the addition of multiple pages. So pagination in the form, very easily able to build that out as well. On this this last page here, one piece I wanted to show you around, in this case, we're adding family members. So other uses around this we see in financial services is if you're adding like dependents for a 401k or something along those lines. We have the ability to add multiple or repeating objects directly in the form. So in this case, it'd be, this person has their spouse that they also want to bring online here with Children's Health System, or a child or a grandparent. But ultimately making it really easy self-serve type model for the end user to add or remove certain fields. For simplicity's sake, I'm just going to go ahead and remove this. What's going to happen next is we're going to submit this form. And two things are going to happen immediately. One is that Gil, or in this case, in my email, I'm going to receive a document for signature. And number two, Gil will have a record generated in Salesforce. So if we bear with me here. The beauties of having multiple Salesforce logins. I got booted out of one, so give me one moment here. All right, so what we should see now is Gil as a contact that has now been generated from the form I just submitted. Additionally, Gil, or myself in this case, will have also received this patient registration document. Again, this could be more of a early stage document being generated. Again, remember that there is flexibility, plenty of, in fact, around how and when documents are being generated. This is just one example. I've submitted the form, it's taking Gil's information. pasting it or merging it onto our nice, pretty document, and then ultimately allowing Gil to click and sign off on said document via the pre-built script or little scribble. I'll submit my document. Both parties will receive their signed copy. In this case, I'll receive mine in a moment here via email, or if it needs to go on to multiple signers, it'll certainly follow that process. But our signed document will have all the information, Gil's signature, along with our full audit trail. And then additionally, just a quick refresh. We will also see our file here on Gil with all the information that I just showed you.
Seamus, to confirm, there's been a few questions around the data itself. So just to clarify, the data from the form can sync directly with the contact record as well as the attachment of the full form submission, correct?
That is correct. Yeah. So it'll make more sense when we get into the builder around like data from field to field. Now, the full submission, we do also have the ability to take a quick snapshot in a PDF format. In this example here, this is a really simple version of that PDF snapshot. We often find that it's helpful for like version control or version history, if you will, to understand like what the initial record might have been from a form submission, et cetera. Did that answer the question?
Looks like it did. Yeah, there were a couple questions around, I think, the file versus the data points we can map to. So yeah, it looks like that should address those questions. Yeah.
Perfect. Now, before we get into the builder, the one last piece I did want to show the team around here today is around pre-populating forms. So there's a number of ways we can go about that. I'm going to show you one of those ways today, and it's based on what we refer to as dynamic prefill. So what we can do with dynamic prefill is generate an auto-assigned unique URL for this particular contact record or contact and opportunity, or again, any standard or custom object. We can generate a link. How we share that link out is up to us. In this case, we actually have built out a flow in our demo org here, which will email out a nice, pretty Salesforce email template with that link hyperlinked into the email. Again, think about more continual data collection. I mentioned like NPS surveys, but any time in which this is not your first interaction with your client is a good use case for that prefill functionality. Because again, you already know who this person is, you know their name, you know their email perhaps. Perhaps you know other details about them already, and you're just asking them to update said information. So in this case, we've triggered our flow. It's sending out this link. We're going to update our patient information. And what do you know? We already have Gil's information. No need for Gil to have to retype in his name or the fact that he broke both of his thumbs, or maybe Gil finds out, oh, actually the Queens location is my preferred location. Or maybe this is an instance in which later in a registration process, you're asking for supporting documentation. So Gil can go ahead and add a driver's license or something along those lines. Point is, not only are your clients expecting that digital first experience, but they're expecting for it to be easy for them. So stop making your clients fill out their name and email on every single interaction you have with them in a web form format. So that's that covers most of the end user experience and a little bit of the back end once a solution like this is built out and ready to go. Now, happy to peel back the layers of the onion around the build out process a little bit here. And we'll make sure we leave some time at the end as well for some more formal Q&A once everyone has had a chance to digest their thoughts. But as far as the Formstack applications, again, they do live right within Salesforce. So we have the Formstack app that you see here, which is the Forms solution, and then the Documents application as well. So I'm going to start with the Forms product. We're going to jump into that. So whenever you're creating a new form, you would choose between one of the two, create new form or create community form. The only difference being is that if you're creating a form for a community, that you will have that that Lightning Web component in order to allow you to add that form right into a community or experience. But I'm going to go to this specific patient intake form here. We're going to take a look. So whenever you're creating a new form, the first thing you do need to do is assign what is your object structure going to be for this form. If you've already built your form, we can go in here and you'll be able to see what that object structure looks like. We have the ability to map to, again, any standard or custom object in your org at a parent all the way to a grandchild relationship level. So 2 levels up, 2 levels down. We can also make repeating objects. So I showed you that example of the add dependence on that form. It's as simple as just checking that box. And then on the form itself, I will have that option to add or remove questionnaires on this contact, or again, any other child object here. Some other standard settings you'll see surrounding the builder, the ability to easily change things like the submit label, the actual post submission message, adding things like reCAPTCHA, that PDF confirmation, quite a bit in here in that simple click option or click on settings menu. Now, if there's something in particular that you're looking to build out within this form that is not available right out of the box, you can also apply some custom JavaScript to said form if you're feeling fancy. Now, as far as the build out goes, key thing to keep in mind is, number one, the fields in Salesforce that we're adding to our form are going to be dependent on that object structure that we added. So for example, we've added our contact and our questionnaire. So now if I open up the contact field, I'll be able to see any field associated with contact. In order to add said field, I can just grab age bracket, for example, and drop it into my builder. If you ever need to make changes, very simple to do. Perhaps age bracket becomes age range. Regardless of which, you'll see on any of our field settings that the API name is listed right here, because again, we're living natively in Salesforce, so that we're just inheriting that object structure, those particular objects within your org. So as you add the age range field onto your form, it's automatically connected right to that object. No third-party mapping process or hard to handle middleware. It's as simple as drag and drop and you're connected. There is some flexibility as well around customizing fields. So for example, if you wanted to at the form level customize one of your age range selections, you could certainly do that within your options here under customize. You can add or subtract certain values. So rather than on every single form, perhaps having to go into setup in your object manager and change that field or add a new field, there is some flexibility there around editing what the field contents are. I'm going to delete that field for now, though. You'll also see here, as far as the builder goes, very simple to add new pages, add new sections to break up the look and feel of the form. And additionally, as far as look and feel, all of your styling can be handled right here within the point and click editor, which you'll see in real time. Again, like the form settings I showed you where you can add custom JavaScript, if you are feeling fancy, you have the skills to do so. You do have a full CSS editor here as well. So really giving you full control over the look and feel. Last piece here in the builder itself, rules. So if you're thinking conditional logic, how do we go about adding conditional logic, showing, hiding fields, but also beyond that? So again, you can handle most, if not any of your scenarios around conditional logic right here within the rules builder. You'll see a few examples in here, again, mainly around show and hide, adding multiple conditions. But you'll also notice that your operations go beyond just your traditional show and hide. So you can populate fields based on the selection made. You can display an error message, make read-only required, not required, but also set pick list values. So it gives you a ton of flexibility as a business user, maybe a non-developer user, maybe a marketing user who just wants the ability to edit what the forms look like and how they feel. Very much intended, again, to bring the power back to your business users. So that about covers the initial build out piece here of the Forms for Salesforce tool. Now, the last piece of the puzzle here that I'll show you all around is around the documents application. So how do we go about generating a document from Salesforce? So I'll jump into that application here. Give me one moment for this to load. The joys of working in the sandbox. We're going to jump into one of my my only folder in here. We're going to take a look at an invoice document. So the way I like to look at the documents tool is in a quick 3-step approach. Number one, we have to assign what is going to be our document template. Number two would be, where's that document template going? And then number 3 is connecting it to Salesforce. So first and foremost here, under Manage File, I actually used a Word document. So we do accept Word, Excel, PowerPoint, fillable PDFs, HTML-based documents. We also do have an in-app document builder. In the instance of using a Word document, here is where step number 1 comes into play, building our template. So I've used an invoice template that I have in Sales or just in Microsoft Word. And the main thing that you need to consider in building your template is adding your merge tags. These are your placeholders. They're simply saying insert data here. Where that data is coming from, in this case, Salesforce, would actually be handled here in the Formstack mapping section. But you'll see a variety of these tags throughout the document. Simple things like customer name, street address, emails, but also some formatted options like a date format. You can also add in things like calculations. So in this case, like an invoice. And last but certainly not least, adding powerful things like table loops into our document. So in this case, looping through a list of products in Salesforce, adding a new line for every time a new product is added onto our invoice. So step 1 is now complete, created our document template. Step 2 from here is now, how are we sending that document out? Well, a couple ways. In this case, number 1, we're sending this one out via sign. It could be something as simple as sending out via email. But you also see in our delivery options, not only do we have our own e-signature tool, we do play with others, but also have the ability to route either signed documents or just documents in general out to storage tools like Google Drive, Dropbox, Box. And then even more importantly, making sure we get documents back into Salesforce. So we've now created our document. We have set up where that document is going to go. Now the last piece is our mapping section. So the mapping section is going to be a quick kind of one-to-one mapping session of what object or fields in Salesforce are we taking data from in order to deliver that document via our delivery method. So I've navigated here into this mapping that I've already built out. If you're building a new mapping, number one, you just need to assign what the primary object is for said mapping. We can then, of course, map data to other objects related to the opportunity. In addition, you'll see this button for route. So we do have the ability to take data and map it to just one single document, but we do also have the ability to use what we call a data route, or in short, adding a layer of logic between our data source and what document are we generating, or documents. So using a condition, for example, like if the state of California, generate this document. If not the state of California, generate that document. Anywho, I've built my document, uploaded it into the product, added our delivery options. So now I'll find that document within our dropdown. And then from there, it's just a simple mapping process. Because I've added those merge tags as those placeholders in my doc, we're then just going to search through any applicable Salesforce field, as you see here, and add it to that merge tag. So for example, if call it date, we want to search for a particular date, you'll see that it's actually organized in this dropdown in both related objects. So if the object name is referred to with a colon before it, this is going to be a related object. Whereas if I add close date, you'll see that there is no object name next to it. So it is ultimately related directly to opportunity. So that is kind of the gist of what I was planning on showing everyone around here today in relation to Salesforce. I saw there were a couple of, or at least one unanswered question at this point. But I think now we're kind of at the point where it's time to see if there's any other additional questions, comments, concerns, anything else that we can help air for the team here today.
Yeah, thanks, Seamus, for going through that. Super helpful. I think, on the other end of it, being a user and a partner, we've had a lot of different use case for Formstack, and in general, it's like anything else. Once you really get the hang of the solution, you realize it can do a lot more. So a lot of times, someone will bring in a product like this for a specific purpose, and then once it's there, you start to realize, okay, well, I brought it in for a form submission feature that I needed, but now, to your point earlier, I'm using it for NPS scores where I'm collecting information. I was sending NDAs through Word documents before, and now I'm sending them through Formstack documents with signatures. So, a lot of times there's a specific use case kind of going in where you think it'll fill one need, and then what you start to find as you get more comfortable with the tool is there's lots of things that it can scale and grow into. One question just came through about HIPAA compliance, or just, I guess, could you talk a little bit about security in general, and then, more specifically, anything around HIPAA?
Yeah, so the short answer is we do offer HIPAA compliant solutions across all of our products. Specifically in relation to the Forms for Salesforce tool, I talked a little bit about our native cloud application. So the native cloud application takes the security and the native nature of the application a step further, and that data will never actually leave your Force.com servers. So in that case, we just piggyback off of any compliance standards related to that Salesforce org. So assuming you're using Health Cloud or you have HIPAA compliance standards in place in your Salesforce org, we'll just simply piggyback off of those standards. But yeah, happy to discuss in more detail if there's more specific concerns around HIPAA compliance.
Thank you, Seamus. One other question that's in there is just around, and it looks like someone's answering now, but just around the Salesforce objects. How many Salesforce objects can documents use? So is there a limit to the number of objects you can include in one document?
Number of objects you can use. I know the relationship limit, I believe, is 2 levels up and 2 levels down. You can leverage SQL queries as well.
Okay.
So for some of those more complex use cases or complex relationships.
One thing, and just for those that are not looking in the Q&A and chat, I just want to make sure that everybody's seeing answers in there too, or maybe repeat some of those questions just to make sure everybody knows what was there. The one about voting with broken thumbs, I guess probably doesn't need an answer, but utilizing part out prospects in Salesforce, I posted an answer in there, but essentially, anything that's connecting to Salesforce, or part out being a tool that's living natively in Salesforce as a marketing tool. As long as those form fields that are in part out are syncing with CRM data, those can be included in forms. So there's no limitation there, because really you're using that native connection between part out and Salesforce. So those form fields will be available to use in a Formstack document. We touched on the document attachments and those living in Salesforce. There was a question around grandchild objects, which I think you had mentioned 2 levels up and down. I think that also addresses the grandchild object question. And then the one other thing in here was around the repeatable objects. I know there was a note from the team about reaching out around that and making improvements. Anything you want to touch upon, Seamus, around repeatable objects?
I'm just reading through this question in a bit more detail. So yeah, I think we can definitely handle these more specific use cases offline, like really understand what the ask is. But it sounds like it is something that is being worked on. So hoping that comes to fruition from here.
Okay, awesome. Any other questions for anybody? And these are all, there's a lot of great questions. So, it was good to have everybody engaged and asking questions throughout. Super helpful as we go through. We don't want to just hear ourselves talk the entire time. So, really appreciate you guys asking some questions. Again, one of the other things that we'll make sure of is, after this, always send out surveys. So just, want feedback. We want to know if this was helpful and relevant to what you're trying to accomplish, obviously. And then just gives us a way to improve as we continue to roll out more within this partner series that we're working on now for webinars. As we send out the surveys, we'll also be sending out the recording. And then I know, Seamus, you mentioned you have a deck. I think that would be a separate piece, but we'll share that as well. So definitely have some follow-up on our end in terms of getting today's material over to you. We do have 15 minutes left. If there are any other questions or anything else, Seamus, that you wanted to add before we drop, but on my end, this was great. I really appreciate you taking some time to talk us through this, because this is a big need that we see often. So I thought it'd be really helpful to share this with those that are really looking for some solutions to kind of complement and really build upon their Salesforce instance. So really appreciate you taking the time to do this today and spend 45 minutes with us. But yeah, any other questions or comments before we drop, or anything else on your end, Seamus?
I think the big thing is I hope everyone that attended today learned a thing or two. If you do have questions, reach out to Gil, reach out to myself. We'll include our contact information as we get information back out to you via the deck, the recording, etc. Add us on LinkedIn if you have questions. If there's specific scenarios you want to talk through, like, we're open books. Happy to bounce ideas around and see if it's something that we can solve for. At the end of the day, like, our solutions are not necessarily one size fits all. This was just one flavor of how the platform fits into the Salesforce ecosystem. So a lot of flexibility to be had, and let us know how we can help.
All right, awesome. Thanks again, Seamus. And thanks everybody for joining today. And be on the lookout for some follow-up. And hope to see you guys again soon with our next webinar, which we should be doing one in December. So keep everybody posted on the topic there. We've got some really cool stuff lined up over the next few months. And yeah, look forward to hearing from everyone after this. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.